There's a version of Louisiana you already know. Jazz, bayous, Mardi Gras. This isn't that version. These are towns where nothing collapsed, but nothing really moves anymore. The lights are still on. People still live here, which somehow makes it harder to explain. Delhi, Louisiana. Delhi doesn't look broken when you first drive through. That's the thing about it. There's a Dollar General, a gas station or two, a church, actually, several churches, a few streets of small houses, a water tower with the town's name on it. On the surface, it reads as just a small Louisiana town. And in some ways, that's exactly what it is. But spend a little time here, and you start to notice what's missing. There's no real commercial center, no coffee shop where people linger on Saturday mornings, no hardware store that's been in the same family for 40 years. The things that usually give a small town its texture, its reason to exist beyond a zip code, they're not really here. Delhi sits in Richland Parish, in the northeastern part of the state. Agriculture is the backbone, has been for generations. And agriculture, done at scale, doesn't actually need that many people anymore. So the town stays, the people stay, but the momentum, that quiet forward pull that makes a place feel alive that left a long time ago, it's not that something went wrong in Delhi. It's that nothing much went right. And at some point, those two things start to feel the same. St. Joseph, Louisiana. There are towns that feel quiet. And then there's St. Joseph. St. Joseph is the parish seat of Tensas Parish, which means, technically, it's the center of local government, the most important town in the area. And yet, walk the main street on a weekday afternoon, and the sound you hear most clearly is your own footsteps. A few buildings that were clearly something once, a bank, maybe a department store. Now, they're just facades, dressed up fronts with nothing behind them. Tensas Parish is one of the least populated parishes in Louisiana. And the population isn't holding steady. It's been falling for decades. The young people leave for Monroe, for Shreveport, for anywhere with a job market. What remains is older, quieter, more still. There's a kind of dignity to St. Joseph that you have to notice carefully. The courthouse still stands. People still show up to things. There's still a newspaper, or there was recently. But dignity and momentum aren't the same thing. St. Joseph feels smaller than it should be. Not because it lacks history, but because the history is all it has left. Oak Grove. Let's say you end up in Oak Grove. Maybe you took a wrong turn off a state highway. Maybe you saw the name on a map and thought, I've never heard of that place. So you go. You drive past fields that stretch out in every direction. Flat land, long roads, very little breaking the horizon. Then you reach the town. There's a main street, a few businesses, a school, a handful of churches. Everything you would expect to find in a place like this, and nothing you wouldn't. You can drive every street in Oak Grove in under 20 minutes. And when you're done, there's a strange feeling that settles in. Like you didn't really see anything. Not because it's empty, not because it's unsafe, but because nothing stands out enough to hold your attention. No landmark, no place that pulls you in, no reason to stay longer than you planned. Oak Grove isn't dangerous. It isn't dramatic. It's something quieter than that. It's the kind of place that doesn't leave an impression, and over time, that becomes the impression. Vidalia, Louisiana. Stand on the riverbank in Vidalia and look across the Mississippi. What you see, on the other side, is Natchez, Mississippi. And Natchez is genuinely one of the most historically rich small cities in the American South. Antebellum mansions, a thriving tourism industry, riverboat history, restaurants that get written up in national food publications. People drive from hours away to spend a weekend there. Now, turn around. You're in Vidalia. Vidalia sits directly across the water, connected to Natchez by a bridge you can drive in 3 minutes. By every geographic and logistical measure, Vidalia should have caught some of that energy. The tourism, the investment, the foot traffic. It didn't. And that's not an accident. It's economics, history, and state policy all converging in a way that left Vidalia on the wrong side of the river in more ways than one. The town is not without its residents, its churches, its daily life. But when you can see prosperity from your front porch, when you can literally look across a bridge at a place that worked out differently, it adds a specific kind of weight to the place you're standing. Proximity to success, it turns out, doesn't guarantee any of it. Sometimes it just gives you a better view of what you didn't get. BASTROP, Louisiana. BASTROP had a plan. For much of the 20th century, the plan was paper. International Paper operated a mill here for decades, a massive industrial employer that anchored the local economy the way those facilities used to anchor small American cities. Good union jobs, stable salaries, people bought houses, raised families, stayed. The mill closed in 2000. That's not a small sentence. That's the kind of sentence that reshapes everything that comes after it. Bastrop's seat of Morehouse Parish in the northeast corner of Louisiana didn't collapse the way a town does in a movie, all at once, dramatically. It declined the way most American towns decline, slowly, bureaucratically, one closed storefront at a time. The main street started to hollow out. The tax base shrank. The young people who would have taken those mill jobs calculated the situation and left. What makes BASTROP particularly hard to watch is that it tried. There were plans, there were committees. There were a few years where it looked like something new might take root. It didn't stick. Today, BASTROP is a town that still has the bones of something bigger. The grid, the architecture, the institutional memory of a real economy, but not the economy itself. It didn't collapse overnight. It just never recovered. Lake Providence, Louisiana. There's a lake in Lake Providence, which sounds obvious, but it's worth saying because the lake is genuinely beautiful. It's an oxbow lake, a crescent-shaped remnant of an old bend in the Mississippi River. Spanish moss on cypress trees. Still water reflecting a wide Louisiana sky. The kind of scene that makes people stop and take a photograph. Lake Providence, East Carroll Parish, is one of the most visually striking small towns in the state. It is also, by most poverty metrics, one of the most struggling communities in the entire United States. East Carroll Parish has at various times ranked among the poorest counties in the country. Not in Louisiana, in the country. Child poverty rates that are staggering. Median incomes that are a fraction of the national average. A healthcare infrastructure that is, to put it charitably, thin. That gap between how the place looks and what the numbers say is genuinely difficult to sit with. The beauty is real. The struggle is also real. They coexist here in a way that doesn't resolve neatly. People in Lake Providence are not statistics. They have lives and histories and love for their community that outlasts any ranking. But when the same community appears at the bottom of the same lists, decade after decade, when the lake stays beautiful and the opportunity stays absent, at some point you have to ask, who is this place working for? TALLULAH, Louisiana. Interstate 20 runs straight through TALLULAH. For a small town, that's supposed to be a lifeline. Infrastructure, connectivity, access to regional supply chains. The theory goes, put a town on a major interstate and commerce follows. TALLULAH is on I-20. The commerce did not follow. Madison Parish, where TALLULAH sits, is another entry in Louisiana's long list of deeply impoverished rural parishes. Unemployment runs high. Educational attainment runs low. The infrastructure of the town itself, roads, utilities, public facilities, reflects years of underinvestment. And the interstate, it turns out, is part of the problem as much as the solution. Because I-20 makes it easy to leave. The people who might have stayed, who in an earlier era would have had no real option but to build lives here, they get on the highway and they go somewhere else. Monroe is an hour away. Shreveport is 2. The access that was supposed to bring things in has mostly carried people out. Every day, thousands of cars and trucks roll through TALLULAH at 70 miles an hour. Drivers see a water tower, maybe a gas station sign. They don't stop. And the town, which is right there, just off the exit, stays invisible. A place people pass through, not a place people arrive at. FERRIDAY, Louisiana. Here's something true about FERRIDAY. Jerry Lee Lewis was born here. Mickey Gilley was born here. Jimmy Swaggart, whatever you think of him, was born here. 3 men who became household names across the country, all from the same small town in Concordia Parish. That's not a coincidence. That's a culture. A specific time and place where music moved through the air differently, where black and white musical traditions crossed in ways they weren't supposed to, where something genuinely original got made. FERRIDAY in the 1940s and 50s was a town with nightclubs, with juke joints, with electricity, now stand on the main street. There's not a lot left of that story in the physical landscape. The clubs are long gone, the The energy that produced those careers dissipated. What remains is a small, quiet, economically struggling town that you would not look at and guess had produced 3 national figures. There's a museum, there are historical markers. The history is acknowledged, which is more than some places get. But there's a particular grief in standing somewhere that used to matter, and watching it not matter anymore. Faraday made stars. The stars left, and the town has been living in that absence ever since. Rayville, Louisiana. You've probably driven past Rayville. If you've ever taken Interstate 20 across northern Louisiana heading toward Monroe or Shreveport, you've seen the exit sign. Rayville. And then you kept driving. That's the experience for most people. A name on a sign. A fraction of a second, gone. On paper, Rayville has what a town is supposed to have. A parish seat, schools, a few thousand residents, a location directly on a major interstate. But on paper and in practice are not the same thing. In practice, Rayville is a place the modern economy has made almost entirely optional. There's nothing you can only get here. Nothing that requires you to stop. Nothing that pulls you off the road if you're in a hurry. And everyone is in a hurry. Thousands of cars pass Rayville every single day. Close enough that at night, the headlights stretch endlessly along the highway. The town is right there, visible, marked, real. And still, for almost everyone passing through it, might as well not be. A place that shows up on every map and almost nowhere else. Monroe Outskirts, West Monroe Edge, Louisiana. For the #1 spot on this list, I'm not going to show you an abandoned building. I'm not going to give you the most dramatic image of collapse, because that's actually the wrong picture. The edges of Monroe, the outskirts, the old commercial strips, the neighborhoods that used to be the working middle of this city tell a more accurate story. And a harder one. Monroe is a real city, the largest in northeastern Louisiana. It has a university, a regional airport, a hospital system, and a downtown that people are genuinely trying to bring back. But the edges tell a different story. Old strip malls where half the units have been vacant for years. Neighborhoods where homes are aging faster than they're being maintained. Commercial corridors built for an economy that no longer exists. A version of American retail and industry that peaked somewhere in the late 1980s and has been quietly shrinking ever since. This is what decline actually looks like in America. Not abandoned, not empty, just slowly wearing down. The lights are still on. People still live here. Kids still play outside. But the infrastructure around them, the economic and physical infrastructure, is losing ground. Slowly, consistently. And the thing about slow decline is that it's easy not to notice until one day you do. The towns on this list, Delhi, St. Joseph, Oak Grove, Vidalia, BASTROP, Lake Providence, TALLULAH, FERRIDAY, RAYVILLE, they didn't get here overnight. They got here the same way everything wears down, gradually and then all at once. Monroe's edges are a reminder that this isn't just a rural problem or a small town problem or a Louisiana problem. It's an American problem. And it's worth looking at honestly. I want to be clear about something before we end. The people in these towns are not their statistics. They're not their poverty rates or their vacancy rates or their ranking on any list. They're people who chose to stay or had to stay or built something worth staying for in places the broader economy has left behind. That deserves more than a passing glance from the interstate. If you're from one of these towns or somewhere like them, you understand resilience and community in a way most people don't. And if you're not, maybe this is a reason to look a little more carefully at the places you drive past. The sign on the exit says something, the town behind it says more. Thanks for watching.